Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we will go over Reign of Winter Marksman, or what I like to call Icicle Marksman 2.0. This build has been a long time coming, and I haven't really gotten around to it till now, because one of my friends bullied into it. Thank you, Jay. Before we get into the video, if you enjoyed the steady flow of content, I'd suggest you guys to like and comment on the video, as that's the best way to support the channel and the best way to tell YouTube I'm doing a good job. So this build has been in the works for a long time now. There was a very old version I made when the unique Reign of Winter, which is a 50-50 drop from Herot Unempowered by the way now, and it was not really good. Being forced to use Flurry every other pack to keep your mana up was a big problem, and it felt like you were constantly out of mana. But with the mana regen changes and the addition of more mana stuff inside Puncture allows us to not have to spam mana generator attacks all the time, meaning our Monolith gameplay is much smoother. We do have to spam it on bosses still, sadly, just because of how it works. The Oribus problem, i.e. Oribus having too small of a hitbox for us, is still a problem, as I'm sure you can tell in the footage, and one of the only drawbacks of the build. So a few other things I found with the 2.0 version of this: armor shred is absolutely insane for us, since we hit so many times thanks to Giant Slayer, a node inside Multishot that allows our projectiles to all hit the same target for much less damage, which doesn't matter because you're killing things with icicles, not the multi-shot projectiles. All of the armor shred and cold shred are multiplied tenfold, allowing you to get easy amounts of percentage more damage for our icicles, which is integral because we are scaling a non-specializable skill, which means we have no percentage more damage to rely on inside a skill. We also utilize the boots, Morning Frosts, which give us one flat cold for spells and attacks per dexterity. This also subtracts 1 point of cold and physical res per point of dexterity, so in the end we're ending up with negative 70% phys and cold res, which is a big gearing investment. This is not a cheap build. The icicles are spells that scale off dexterity and attunement, which gives us 4% increased damage per point. They also start off with 60 flat cold from the bow itself, but if we get up to 70 dexterity, which a rogue is very good at by the way, dex stacking, means we are already almost doubling the icicle damage. These boots are required for the build to function. This on top of the insane 75 flat HP on crit, per crit by the way, which is monumental for the build. It allows us to face tank a lot of things in the game very easily, meaning you go from any amount of HP to full HP pretty much every single time, even on singular targets. This makes it so you don't need any leech or any other form of sustain, and it makes us actually very tanky, ironically. This all combined allows us to just dart through monoliths, killing the entire screen, and leads to a very fun playstyle, and has to be one of my favorite builds of the patch, and I'm really happy that I decided to go back and play this. I know that there is another version of this running around. I think it's Lizard's Bowmage, where he's utilizing Detonating Arrow and Channeled Flurry for a single target, and that build is as strong as this. It's a lot better for arena though. The main reason why is in arena you don't have time to use mana generator attacks, so it's much better to spam a 0 mana cost detonating arrow, because even though it's not as many hits as Multishot itself, it's still 3 hits overall. But it does lack a little bit in terms of the speedy monolith gameplay, which I know a lot of the people that watch my videos are looking for. So this is much more tailored towards you guys. I will be also linking his version down in the description. With that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Here we are in game with the build, the Icicle Marksman, and you must be wondering, what is this black thing like under me? Well, that is my pop filter. Yes, I have finally decided to save you guys from the perilous proportionate terror that is the P sound. Now, it is made out of a coat hanger and a sock, which works really well, ironically. It works really well. I tested it. So that's nice. Yeah, getting back into the build here. So the main rotation is you're mainly just using shift and multi-shot through monoliths. So you just go around, multi-shot through monoliths and stuff like that. And as you can tell, the mana cost isn't that high, and it makes it so we can actually spend a decent amount of time using multi-shot to clear the screen, while also, of course, not having to stop to get mana. Now, the beautiful thing about this build is when we do want to gain mana back, is all we have to do is just, like I can show you here, and show you after I suck up the mana. It's actually really hard to suck up the mana now. I can actually puncture to gain a decent amount of mana back. Also, your puncture actually does okay damage, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, that's you just need a puncture to gain your mana back also as well. You also get the frenzy buff, which is nice as well. And that's pretty much it for Monolith gameplay. There's not really much different. We're using Shurikens for armor, so we're not really casting Shurikens. We're just casting off ship just for a few more DR points. That's pretty much it. Now, one thing I will note. So with the way that multi-shot works, so if you did not know, if I shoot multi-shot like this near my cursor, it shoots in a much bigger spread. Most of the time, you do not want this spread, because what happens is, since the Giant Slayer projectiles, since they all can hit the same target, you kind of want them to hit as many targets as possible, because the way the build works is, since the Giant Slayer projectiles don't kill anything, they just need a hit, it's actually better to hit all one target. Why is that? Well, the icicles are very smart, and they will auto-target nearby enemies. You could be hitting an enemy right here, like the dummy, and the enemy over here could be being shot with icicles because of the way it works. So, in theory, you want to be putting your cursor as far as humanly possible to cause as many shotguns as humanly possible. Now, sometimes it's a little hard, but what I've noticed is if you kind of like get in this kind of position and you pull your cursor like this, you can pretty well easily hit every single projectile. Now, what I've noticed is if you stand right next to the enemy, it kind of like phases the projectiles through the target, making it so that sometimes you don't get all of your projectiles. So if you stand just a little bit back here, just a teeny little bit, so till you can see the arrows actually show up on the screen, like there, and then you kind of like mess around a little bit, and then you kind of get that. There you go. That's what you want to see right there. That's exactly what you want to see. You want to see all the arrows hit and like do like that. Now, some go past because of the piercing mechanic, which is insane for this build, but mainly, as you can tell there, all the hits are hitting, all the icicles are hitting the same target. But the problem is, Oribus has a very small hitbox. I think he has a smaller hitbox than the training dummy, to be honest. And he's also very hard to stand still to do this. So your Oribus fights will be fun and engaging. They won't be as easy as other builds. If you want much more easier, like Oribus killing gameplay, you could always play Bleed HOA or something like that. But the amount of buttery smooth gameplay you get out of the monolith farming is definitely worth the extra minute or so spent on Oribus, in my humble opinion. Yeah, with that being said, let's get into the skills, shall we? So for multi-shot, this is the most important thing here. We take 3 points into efficient draw. Just having our multi-shot as cheap as possible is very important. 3 points into quick draw for the attack speed. Attack speed is one of our last scaling components, because the more attacks we do per second, the more icicles we get out, and the more icicles we get out, the more damage we do. Then 2 points travel into true strikes. This doesn't really matter. 2 points into large quiver for extra arrows. So we go from 5 to 9, and then we go to 11 with the stuff on top of the marksman tree, which is really nice. Then of course 1 point into giant slayer. Now these projectiles, they will deal 80% less damage with all forms of damage, including dots. But unlike flurry and the other skills that are like this, they do not give you a less chance to apply ailments, which means that ailments on your tree, like for instance, I can show you here. It's hard to see the P button through my pop filter. Kind of ironic. So Woundmaker here, you have a chance to inflict critical vulnerability on hit. This is always placed at a 1-to-1 ratio. So whenever you walk up to a single target and you hit him with all 11 of your projectiles on top of all the icicles as well, which don't have a reduce ailment modifier either, you apply like 10 stacks of critical vulnerability, making it so no matter how much crit chance you have, you will always crit no matter what, which is very, very, very strong. And this holds true to armor shred as well, which leads to a lot of like more damage for your icicles as well. And that's pretty much it for there. Now for the rest of uh, Multishot's tree, we take 1 point into back to back, which makes it so every 8 attacks, multi-shot is a double shot. Just increase it, just gives you more shots of multi-shot, which is what we want. But then we get even fewer shots, so it's every 4 shots. So what it does is it gives us 20% more arrows because every 4 shots okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. It just gives us 5 shots instead of 4, which is really strong. And of course, we got 3 points into Hang Loose. So you gain haste whenever you use or proc multi-shot. And mainly, it's just a bunch of haste. You're attacking all the time. The attack speed's really nice. Just being able to zoom around monoliths with really fast movement speed is insane. So yeah, that's pretty much it for multi-shot. Now for a shift, we have it set up, since we're stacking dexterity, we have the healing set up. So we take 3 points into shadow recuperation, 2 points into breathing technique. Since we have 70 dex, we get like 140 HP from this, which is really nice. And of course, 1 point into rebound. It makes it so your cooldown resets on your shift if you're less than 50% of your health. Well, yeah, at least 50% of your health, which is really good on bosses. Then 5 points into sleight of hand to give us 5 shurikens, so it gives us increased armor so that we can actually, tank things. 1 point into unseen strike. It's like the last point you have. 4 points into swift recovery. Since we have so much mana efficiency thanks to our dexterity stacking, which if you did not know, we gain mana efficiency per point of dex. It means that this actually gives us mana every single time we use it, like 4 mana. And it's very, very noticeable sometimes. Because if you're less than half health, below half health, as you can tell, it gives us 48 mana instead, which is a lot of mana. So sometimes it's better just to take damage so you can make more mana quickly. Then 1 point into shadow slip, so you get into vulnerability, of course. Then 3 points to momentum. It's like your stereotypical setup for shift. Now, one thing you could do if you do not feel like as though you're very squishy and you want quicker boss kills, you could always take the 3 points out of these nodes and put it into consumed by shadow so that we can get 15% cold, but I didn't really find it like needed. But you could definitely do it, especially if you're dealing with Orobuses with a lot of endurance and stuff like that. And of course, for Puncture, most of this tree is useless. Okay? I will tell you the nodes that are worth it. 2 points travel into Perforate, 2 points into Press the Attack to give us Frenzy, which makes our punctures after the first puncture faster. Then 4 points into Mind Piercer. This on top of the node here gives us 12 mana per puncture, which is actually almost as much as a single multi-shot. And this, on top of all of your mana regen, is enough to fill you to max mana with a few shots. And that's it. The rest of the nodes don't matter. The only reason I'm doing the nodes like I am and I'm not taking the bleed stuff is mainly because bleed lags my computer right now for no reason. You could do whatever you want with the rest of the points. As long as you have this set up with the frenzy and the mana gained, it doesn't really matter. Technically, you could go for the bleed, which would give you a lot more healing, things to mutilate. You could do that. I can't do it because my PC hates me. But other than that, it's like, whatever. For Smoke Bomb, it's your stereotypical Smoke Bomb setup. But since none of the nodes that usually give you damage, like the shadows, the increased damage, the bow crit, none of this stuff actually really helps us. So I actually just went for Cleanse Ailments instead, which seems to be pretty neat. And that's pretty much it. There's not really much else you want to do because not really much else in the tree. The Armor Shred is not really as good for us because it's much better just to multi-shot and we get way more Armor Shred stacks. So it's your stereotypical Smoke Bomb tree. Not really different. Mainly just for the Silver Shroud on bosses and stuff like that. And then for Shurikens is your stereotypical utility Shuriken tree from Shift. The only points you need to know and remember are the 1 point into Thin Shurikens, travel, 1 point into Blade Shield, which makes it so Shurikens are cast around you, 3 points into Bladed Armor to give you % armor per Shuriken around you, and then eventually 4 points to Floating Blades. I don't know why I don't have 4 points into Floating Blades. I feel freaking stupid. So pretend I didn't do that. Pretend you have 2 points into Floating Blades. And then 4 points into Ethereal Blades for the Pierce, because if you did not know, if they're circling around you and they hit an enemy, they'll stop. if you don't have the 100% pierce. And if you really want to, if you really want to add MTX to your build without any additional cost, you could run Charge Steel and have shiny blue stuff around you. Yeah, pretty neat. As you can tell, Shuriken's kind of useless, but it's like, what else are we going to use? Nothing else helps us. So it's like, that's the only thing. You could technically like run the detonating arrow setup. You could like yada, yada, yada if you really want to. It's like, I just like being able to use multi-shot myself. Multi-shot's fun to use. But yeah, with that being said, let's get into the passive, shall we? Had to reach in for the P button again. So we have 8 points in Swift Assassin. We want as much attack speed as humanly possible to make our multi-shots feel good in monos. 8 points in Steady Hand. We want as much dex as possible, and of course HP is always strong. 1 point travel into Guile, 5 points into Evasion for the DR while moving. As you can tell, while we're moving around, we are moving around a lot since our attack speed is so fast, so it's really good to have that. And of course, we're not grabbing Agility, mainly because we gain haste off of Multishot, and this will steal our haste buff and like give us a worse haste buff, so it's better just to not use these points. Then 4 points into Sapping Strikes to give us mana when we use Puncture, which is really nice. Bladedancer is your stereotypical Bladedancer setup. For Apostasy, we are going Apostasy, we're not going Dodge. With the nerfs to Dodge Potion, Marksmans aren't really good with Dodge anymore. It's much better just to go Silver Shroud and be completely fine in that regard and just take the extra DR, which we're almost capped. I think, yeah, 81%. Oh, no, never mind. You would be capped if you had better gear than me. But yeah, I don't have good gear at all. Like, this is like really bad gear, by the way. Yeah, mainly the dexterity here is really nice as well because it gives us extra, dexterity stacking. Then for Marksman here, we have 8 points into bow attack speed. We actually gain a lot of health as well when we use multi-shot, which is really nice because, on top of this, on top of all the crit, like we never die. Never die like to like chip damage. 8 points into focus fire for the dexterity. The dodge rating debuff is really strong as well since we're shooting out so many freaking projectiles. We can reduce enemy dodge very quickly, so you can do dodge monoliths pretty well with this build. 1 point travel into Assassin's Quiver, 1 point travel into Concentration, 10 points into Wound Maker. This makes the build. Without this, your icicles would never crit, and this build would be absolute garbage. So thank God for crit vulnerability. So if you don't know what it does, it gives you a flat stacking ailment that gives you 5% additional chance to be crit and reduces crit avoidance by 10%. So we can also do crit avoidance monoliths as well pretty easily. And it means that pretty much through enough hits with our multi-shot and our icicles, we pretty much get 100% chance to crit on things. And you can tell in the monolith footage, it's pretty overpowered. Yeah. Then, of course, 5 points. Eventually, you'll want 8 points of mediation. This is just a lot of flat dodge, and it works really well with the glancing blow stuff from Apostasy. You run an increased dodge somewhere, and bam, you're capped on glancing blow chance, which is really strong. 1 point travel into Aerostorm, 1 point into Covering Fire, so we get the Silver Shroud whenever we proc Aerostorm every 10 seconds, which means we have every 10 seconds we have a chance to dodge another attack, which is really strong on boss fights like Oribus that don't hit you as often. So this can save you against a lot of things. It can save you against like Oribus melee attacks mainly. He's very nasty later on. His melee attacks do start to get really disgusting. And of course, 4 points travel into Sharpshooter. So pretty much with how many hits we're getting, you don't have to care about anything. Just remember you'll be at max marksman stacks no matter what. We don't care about the bow damage per stack. That's completely useless for us. But what we care about is the increased stun chance per sharpshooter, which is a lot considering we hit so many times and hit so hard. And of course, as you can tell in the monolith footage, most things get stunned when we hit them because we have that much increased stun chance. Also, as well, armor shred chance per stack of sharpshooter. Since we have 10 stacks, you have 120% chance. And since nothing is reduced in terms of ailment effectiveness, we actually get a lot of armor shred, meaning we get to camp very quickly, meaning it is just more damage for us. Then 1 point travel. Well, I realized you actually only need 1 point in this. You could take 1 point and put it everywhere else. I made a mistake. It'll be in the planner below. Then 5 points into perfect aim. Crit multi. This is global crit multi. meaning this works for your icicles, which is really strong because we don't really have room for crit multi on gear. And of course, health on crit per stack that gets up to 5 stacks, which is 75 health on crit per crit per crit per. So for instance, I think let's count here. So I have 5 arrows to begin with, and it goes to 9, and then we get another 4. So we have 13 arrows. So let's just assume that icicles do not trigger and we just hit an enemy, right? Let's just assume that icicles do not proc, which they do. So it's 75 times 14, 13 projectiles. Let me just type this out because I'm too tired to do the math in my head. 975 HP. 975. And that's not taking into account if you pierce with a projectile. That's not taking into account all the projectiles the icicles pierce through. That's not taking into account anything. That's just with our base multi-shot. So this node is broken and will probably get nerfed to make it so whenever you do crit, you just gain 1. And even that node's way strong. But yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty dang good. Probably going to be getting nerfed soon. Then eventually 10 points into ethereal arrows when you get your stuff set up properly, which I do not. Then of course, because the mana regen is really strong, the flat mana is nice because it makes it so we can last longer without having to puncture through picks. Then 2 points into Master Archer just for extra arrows because having extra arrows is good for this build, turns out. But that's pretty much it for the passive tree. Now for the gearing. So you can get increased damage while wielding a bow. You can get increased health or armor shred on bow hit. Probably just want increased health, increased damage with bows. And of course, HP idols all the way. I have a few resistance idols, but mainly just hybrid HP idols, increased damage while wielding a bow, increased health. Your idols are kind of shit with this build, not gonna lie. So you can kind of like get away with just running a bunch of resistance idols, which you will need to do because I can show you why. Look at my physical and my cold res. Hey, look at that. Yeah. So yeah, you definitely want to probably use some idols for resistances to, make it easier on gear. Yeah, let's go over gear. Reign of Winter, absolutely required. It's gained from killing here at Age of Winter. It can be unempowered. It's a 50-50 chance. Really strong. Very easy to farm. Morning Frost. A little bit rare. Odds are you already have a pair of these if you pick up uniques and put them in your stash. But if you don't have it for some reason, you can always go to Spirits of Fire, farm for unique slash set blessing stuff here, and you should be able to get a pair of Morning Frost pretty quickly. Like you look around here, here it is. Unique or slash set boots. You should be able to get it very quickly because it's a very common drop. So it's not really too much of a problem. So it's very easy to actually farm for this build. The biggest problem is getting to level 70 to be able to use Reign of Winter in the first place. That's the most problem most people have problems with. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the bow. Now for the helmet, this is terrible helmet. It's like Dex, increased damage while wielding a bow. You want it on the crit multi base because you want as much crit multi as possible because it's one of your scalers for your icicles because you don't have much else. And of course, increased health endurance. Obviously, it's not that because resistance problems. It's such a bad amulet. You want crit multi, then physical resistance on this to alleviate other stuff. Or you can put dodge percentage to put yourself near to glancing blow cap. Because if you did not know, it takes your flat dodge after the increased amount. Meaning for apostasy, it doubles it after. So you want to get as much increased dodge as possible to get yourself to glancing blow cap. So you could do that as well. Then for the chest, this is your perfect chest. Instead of that lightning res, it could be like increased health. It could be on the percentage dodge base as well. But yeah, that's pretty much like as close to a good chest as you're going to get. The quiver, absolutely almost perfect quiver. If that bow physical damage was bow attack speed, it would be a perfect quiver. This is like absolutely amazing god tier. You could also run crit multi, but I don't really think it's worth it for that slot. Also, bow attack speed's really strong. Then for the rings, dexterity, regen, as much resistance as you can slam on it. Same thing with the other one. Dexterity, mana regen, and as much resistance as you can slam on it. Uh, this is your perfect belt. Perfect, absolutely perfect. You want mana regen everywhere. Then instead of that melee attack speed, you want attunement because that does scale. Or you could run crit chance, although I think attunement would be better. Dexterity, of course, and then crit avoidance HP. Boots, obviously, you can't really run anything here. One of the problems is there is a large roll range for Morning Frost, at least as you can tell with the movement speed. You can have anywhere near 17% movement speed all the way to 29% movement speed on your Morning Frost. You don't really care about the freeze rate multi, but for that, yeah, it kind of sucks. Makes it so you need a really good pair of Morning Frost to feel good, which is fine because it's very easily farmable and you probably have hundreds of them at this point if you've been playing as long as I have. And of course, you can use this on any relic at all. Doesn't really matter what relic you use it on. Just run. I'm not running the fire resistance one because it has bleed on it, and as you know, my computer's anemic to bleed. But that's pretty much perfect. Otherwise, you got the res, mana regen, crit multi, and the build planner below. There's more of a perfect setup for that. One thing I will note: Cold Shred is absolutely insane for this build. It is absolute nut tier. Cold Shred, it literally almost doubles your damage while clearing and gives you 40% more damage on single target. So farming a Cold Shred Empowered Blessing is probably your first thing you do once you get Reign of Winter and get it all set up. The Crit Avoid Blessing is your friend. You definitely want some Crit Avoid. Mine low rolled because it's a bastard. And of course, Lightning Res here as well. Lightning Res is really strong. You don't even need tier you don't even need capped lightning res technically. Not cap. You don't even need 75% lightning res here. Even an unempowered version is fine. And of course, void res, you want a 75% because then you can swap over to a endurance base on your gloves, and then you could actually manage that. Or you could run crit multi if your gearing is good. You can run crit multi, which is really strong as well. And that's pretty much it for the gearing today. One more thing I would add, probably, you can get resistance here as well. You can get endurance as well. Endurance is very strong here, so it helps you cap your endurance. As you can tell, I have no endurance. That could up your endurance to like 47%, which is really strong. That's another thing. But yeah, with all that being said, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye.